MC Benny.
Come on, East Africa.
Ha.
It's a party.
Tell them. Afrika Mashariki. Twaja pamoja.
From country to country, yeah. We gotta work together. We are leaders now. Aiming high for the better. Together. To make our nations greater. Sharing to empower. So you lead, I lead, we lead together. So you lead, I lead, we lead together. We will lead, let your dream be a reality. We will lead, let your dream be a reality.
Together we'll shape with responsibility as young people. With ability, here we are to take the opportunity to raise the flag of East Africa. Together with love, together with peace, together respond to our need. Together transform our community as we see light and a brighter future. Let's join hands for youth and women. Let's join hands for youth and women.
Afrika Mashariki yote twaungana. Vijana vijana kutoka Kenya, Tanzania, Uganda, Burundi hadi South Sudan na Rwanda. Twaja pamoja ili fanye nini? Vijana wote.
I lead, we lead together. So you lead, I lead, we lead together. We will lead, let your dream be a reality. We will lead, let your dream be a reality.
East Africa's largest youth leaders gathering. 2019 Youth Summit theme was Youth at the Crossroads, Migration, Participation and Access to Opportunity.
You are welcome to ULEAD 2019, leaving no one behind. According to data, the world is a young world, and in particular, Africa is a young continent. So we are wondering, why can't young people take over that region?
We think that the moment is now. We think that the potential exists. We think that you can actually make a difference and you can actually take this region to the next level.
The youth are not the leaders of tomorrow, but the leaders of today. And political seats are never given, they are taken.
So can we seek to address that, such that at the end of the day, we're ensuring that we are getting rid of emerging oppressive practices that end up marginalizing youth further, including the young women that we as women have in our houses as domestic workers?
I myself, being a young person, I think I came here not just to represent the open society, but also to be among the participants and learn from other people.
We all need peace and security to be able to do whatever we want to do. Remember one thing, the average age of leaders and politicians in Africa is about 60 years of age. You are not there. And you can never get to 60 years of age if you are used for their purposes.
So you need to understand you have the capability to engage and do anything, including being presidents of countries.
So I encourage you to share your ideas, experiences, and make the most out of the next few days. But I'd like to leave you with a quote from an American author called Carl S. Buck. She said, "The young do not know enough to be prudent, and therefore they attempt the impossible and achieve it generation after generation."
It is your moment. It is your moment, and you have all reasons, legitimate reasons, to claim your space. We are not wise enough to give it to you, so you have to claim it. Claim your seat.
If you want to ensure that things work well in our countries, Uganda, Tanzania, Rwanda, Burundi, build the judiciary and work towards building that to work.
If youth in East Africa want to lead, my own suggestion is that you seize it. Stop agonizing, organize.
Day 1, Youth in Politics, East Africa's Under 40 Political Leaders Forum, Reinventing Leadership for East African Millennials. The forum focused on examining East Africa's current political narrative, attitudes and practices. It assessed whether the political policy choices and priorities adopted by East African leaders embrace the legitimate aspirations and voice of youth in the region and respond to their needs and demands. Also discussed was the vulnerability of youth to conflicts in the region, the role youth can play in peace building, ensuring sustainable security and stability in East Africa.
Is that politics is invariably personal. And that means that when people get into politics, you get brought down to the ground level really fast.
Encouragement to the youth is that nobody is going to give you power. Nobody is going to tell you that there is a seat somewhere. You have to seize that.
Let's see ourselves as problem solvers. If you are an empty person, kindly go use your expertise to solve the problems that is hitting our community.
Outcomes launched the first ever East Africa Under 40 Political Leaders Forum to now be held annually. Initiated the process of forming an East African Youth Manifesto and a campaign on the East Africa Youth Want. Initiated a youth leadership and mentorship program, the first cohort to be admitted in 2020 for serving and aspiring young parliamentarians working together across the region. Created a network to connect ULEAD alumni with mentors and mentorship opportunities to inspire alumni to compete for elective positions elections in the next election cycle across the EAC partner states and working together towards peaceful elections to avoid election-related violence and insecurity. Initiated a biannual country-by-country and regional biannual youth political leaders performance peer review mechanism for holding elected youth representatives accountable to themselves and the youth constituents they represent. Day 2, Youth in Business and Enterprise, East Africa Under 40 Business Leaders Forum, Globalization, as globalization lost its steam. The forum was dedicated to discussions on youth and cross-border trade agreements in Africa, the EAC Common Market Protocol implementation, its successes and shortcomings in pursuit of youth-centered cross-border business facilitation in response to youth unemployment challenges through enterprise and innovation.
We need to define, as far as globalization is concerned, we as African, what do we have to offer?
And I think one of the key challenges I personally had was I did not think big enough, fast enough.
We need to change our mindset about our own products.
Workshop. A number of workshops were facilitated by ULEAD consortium members. Globalization and regionalism, impact of current trends and attitudes on East African young people's business aspirations and the future of work. Bridging youth skills gap, recognition of price skills and youth labor mobility. Migrants and refugees, improving a world on the move. Artificial intelligence, machine learning and the future of work, skills of the future. Youth embracing leadership roles and inventing youth-led accountability. The status of young women in cross-border business in East Africa, enabling and hindering factors. ULEAD Innovation Hub, insights on how to move from an idea to a business. Outcome, launched the first ever East Africa Under 40 Business Leaders Forum to now be held annually. Identified and documented were a set of youth-specific policy and capacity gaps faced by youth business leaders attempting to do cross-border business within the EAC. Consensus on key interventions for creating an enabling environment for youth-led cross-border business and enterprise innovations from a youth business leader's perspective. Facilitated the formation of a network of young CEOs and entrepreneurs across the EAC. Agenda for establishing the East African Fellows Program, a young professional skills exchange program aimed at promoting labor mobility and recognition of prior acquired standardized skills in East Africa. And yes, the climax of the day was the CEO networking dinner, which cemented intergenerational business relationships between young CEOs, young political leaders, ULEAD summit partners, government representatives, and policymakers. Day 3, Post-Summit Agenda. The day was dedicated to creating a strong alumni network, the ULEAD Action Network, and the agenda of action based on the outcome of the national level pre-summit events and the summit. This resulted into a regional common agenda of action and country-specific interventions for each of the countries.
ULEAD is not here to support Museveni or Bobi Wine. ULEAD is for us to learn and say, hey, how can we make change? Informed by those key 4 ambitions, which are long term, we ask ourselves, how do we get there? The only way we can get there is being very intentional and deliberate about a post-summit agenda, strategy, and action.
Day 4 and 5, the East African Youth Parliament, Vijana Assembly. ULEAD, a youth leadership development program seeking to ensure the inclusion of youth voices in key regional decision-making processes and unlock youth leadership potential for a more prosperous region. That is why, as part of the immediate post-summit agenda, the representatives of delegates attended the Vijana Assembly and submitted the outcomes of ULEAD Summit 2019 to the Speaker of the East African Legislative Assembly, RT Honorable Martin Gonga. The delegates demanded that the EALA reflects youth perspective in all its legislative, representation, and oversight work processes, and asked for prioritizing the promotion of youth participation and empowerment as a central part of leadership development and the East Africa Youth Want.
ULEAD Summit 2019 is the Africa that we want.
And I really appreciate ULEAD Summit for giving us a platform on how we can build a collective power to create a sustainable movement that will help us create change in our society.
So I'm very, very happy to participate in ULEAD Summit 2019.
ULEAD Summit is really awesome.
ULEAD Summit Youth Power.
ULEAD Summits is empowering.
To all the ULEAD partners of 2019, thank you for your continued commitment to the ULEAD ambitions. Your participation and support has enabled us to meet several of our goals for 2019. We look forward to continued success together through this collaboration as we pursue the post-summit agenda. To partner with us, contact us. partners@uleadsummit.org, info@uleadsummit.org, www.uleadsummit.org. Follow us on all social media channels via @ULEADSummit.
Over to you, Irene. I think, Irene, you're muted.
Hi, everybody. Sorry for that. My name is Irene. I'm your moderator for the day. A warm welcome to every one of you to this wonderful webinar on the future of work, economic opportunities, and decent work for young people. We know that the pandemic has really frustrated every one of us who's been searching for work, whether we've been having work, and even the young people who've been working in the informal sector. We understand that a lot of us have lost a lot of jobs. So today's session is going to be very interactive and very engaging. And I'd like us to start by number one. If we have any friend or colleague who you know would like to engage in today's session, so just forward to them the link for the registration, or you can also share our Facebook pages because we're streaming live on Facebook, on Tsavo Innovation Lab page, as well as ULEAD page. So the links will be shared on the chat box. So if you know any friend, colleague, or anybody who'll be interested in today's conversation, so just drop them the link and ask them to join. And let's continue and have fun during the session. So today we are going to be joined by various guests. We have quite a number of areas to discuss, but the most important thing we're discussing today is around the changes or the trends in the current work environment. What economic opportunities do they present for us, and also what available opportunities are there in terms of the decent work opportunities for young people. Karibuni sana. So the links have been shared. You can find the links on the chat box. So karibuni sana. I'd like us to begin by hearing from our main partners. So one of our main partners is the ULEAD Secretariat, as well as Tsavo Innovation Lab. So we can have one of the representatives from the ULEAD Secretariat having the floor at the moment. Karibu sana.
Good afternoon, colleagues.
Yes, Kazeneza. Good
Hi,
afternoon.
Irene.
Hi.
How are you?
I am well. How are you on your side?
I'm good, thank you. So yeah, Kazeneza. Irene has already introduced me somehow. I'm Kazeneza Iget. I work at ULEAD as the deputy head of the secretariat. I am based in Nairobi. I think, okay, that's somehow full introduction. We, as I have been saying, even in our previous other webinars, we are really grateful to this partnership with Savolab. This is, I think, is the 4th or 5th webinar we have conducted together, and they have been really successful and very much inspiring to have this kind of webinars where young people comes and discuss on different subjects. And today we are talking about the future of work and opportunities and decent work in East Africa. So we are really grateful to have Tsavo as one of our partners, and we welcome you to this webinar. Normally at ULEAD, we focus mainly on 2 things. One is youth in politics, and we try to work around youth inclusion in different political positions and other leadership positions. And then we also focus on youth in business. That's why, for example, this webinar is very much in line of what we do. Young people in business, trade, and enterprise. We have a network of young CEOs in the region. Some of them will be even in this webinar, so it's really, really nice. I welcome you, and again, we are actually approaching one of our highest moments of ULEAD, which is ULEAD Summit. Normally we have it around November, and this year it is going to be between 23rd and 27th of November. And with a new way of doing because of Corona and restrictions, many people will not be traveling to Arusha, but we will have it around, I can say, around all countries in the region, because the first day of the summit will be hosted by Kenya, which will be the day of politics. The second day will be hosted by South Sudan in Juba. The third day will be hosted in Bujumbura and Kigali, which is the day of business. The last day will be hosted in Uganda, which we call Vijana Assembly, the East Africa Youth Parliament. And then Arusha will play the role of coordination. So yeah, welcome. The applications will be open soon, I think by next week, so stay tuned. Thank you very much. To you, Irene.
Thank you very much, Kazeneza, for that warm introduction. That was very candid. So as Kazeneza said, this is the 5th webinar out of a series of webinars where we're looking at young people in business. Basically, how can young people benefit from the current economic opportunities that have been presented by the COVID-19 pandemic, and how can we be able also to collect together and bring more available opportunities for young people through this webinar session. So I'd like to introduce our next speaker, who is Miriam Kitao from Tsavo Innovation Lab.
Hi everyone. Hi Irene, thank you very much.
Hi.
Yeah, so I'm so glad to be here today, especially because of the topic we're discussing today. It touches around youth and future of work, the youth that are the future, and just things or steps that young people can take to be successful in either the corporate world and even in business. And yeah, so I'm Miriam Kitao from Tsavo Innovations Lab, and at Tsavo is a center for social innovation and social entrepreneurship. And these are 2 functions that are used to help the center fight against poverty and marginalization, as well as loss of human dignity. And yeah, so using partnerships like this one with ULID and Ubuntu, and just to get information out there that will help young people and everyone in the region to be better in their, to better the society, and yeah, hopefully create a better world for everyone. Yeah, thank you and have a good time. I hope this session will be informative and juggle our minds to get to do things differently from how we've been doing it. And yes, thank you, Irene.
Thank you, Miriam. Thank you for that wonderful elaboration. So now I'd just like us once more to share the link that for this webinar session that has been shared on the WhatsApp page. If you haven't shared, just kindly pull up your phones and share the link and invite as many people to join in so that we can be able to have a very, very good and interactive session. Today we are going to be joined by a couple of guests. So we are going to have Caroline, Ms. Caroline Kamati. Caroline is the Executive Director of the East African Trade Union Conference. We'll also be joined by Collins Kimaro. Collins is the founder and the CEO of Ubuntu Hub. We'll also be joined by Oliver Otieno. Oliver is the HR business partner at L'Oreal East Africa. Then Kevin Stephen is also joining us, who is the MD of Maswa Family Group. And finally, we will have Caroline Juki, who is the Chief Technical Advisor, Inclusive Jobs and Education at the ILO. Karibuni sana. So if my panelists are around, starting with Caroline Kamati. So Caroline, just put your video on and say hi to us and tell us how have you been throughout the pandemic?
Hi, Irene. I lost you when I was trying to turn on my video. Hi.
Hi. You can as well switch off your video in case you're having poor internet access. So tell us, how have you been? How has the pandemic been taking you?
I'm fine. I'm keeping my head somewhere above the water, but it's been a difficult period for us. Particularly, I come from the trade union organization, so whatever is happening now is central to our work, to our members. They have been largely affected. The measures that have been put by companies, organizations, they have really affected our members. So I'm really excited to share some of our work and our policy advocacy around the future of work and decent work for youth. So thank you.
Okay. Asante sana for joining us this day. If we have Collins Kimaro. Collins, just put your video on and just briefly introduce yourself and tell us how you're doing.
Thank you, Irene. Good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for the invitation. As Irene mentioned, my name is Collins Kimaro, and I have the privilege of running Ubuntu Hub based in Arusha. You're warmly welcome to visit the capital of East Africa. We work to empower young entrepreneurs, many of which are micro-entrepreneurs, through training, co-working space, and trying to build a community. How we've been during this pandemic is it's been a roller coaster ride. As you can imagine, our aim is to support the young micro-entrepreneurs. So when a pandemic like this hits, we have to think of them. And so it was really challenging to see how can we make sure we provide support to them in this difficult time. And I'm very excited to share more and voice their experiences, their views during this conversation today.
Thank you. Asante sana for joining us. Next, we move over to Oliver Otieno. Oliver, Oliver, if you've joined
Hi.
us, just kindly, yeah, hi.
Yes.
Tell us how have you been,
Hi.
and just introduce yourself
I've
briefly.
been great. Oliver here. Glad to join this conversation. I'm actually joining you guys from Malindi, Kenya. So I just drove here this morning with my family. We want to have a brief holiday break from Nairobi. Yes. I think just to answer your question, this pandemic has really hit hard. Many businesses have had a hard time. I think even at L'Oreal, we've seen a lot of changes courtesy of the times that we have seen since March. However, I'm glad to say that businesses are coming back to life with the easing of the various restrictions that were in place for the past very many months. So I think we see a time that's going to be a bit better for business in general. Yes, so in terms of practice, I am a human resource professional with L'Oreal. We are the beauty people. Beauty is our business, and we believe that beauty has the power to transform lives. So everything we do, we try to satisfy consumers with products that make them look good, feel good, and be proud of the life they're living. Yeah, so happy to be here, happy to join in the conversation and share with you more regarding, what's happening within the space of HR. Yes.
Thank you. Many of us would really love that holiday, so we really envy where you are. Over to our next guest. We'll have Kevin Steven. Kevin Steven, please tell us how you're doing. And, yeah, hi, Kevin.
Hi, how are you? I'm very sorry I'm not in the position to turn off my camera on, and the network is not good.
Okay.
Okay, may
So
I
just
introduce
continue.
myself? I'm Kevin from Tanzania. I'm the managing director of Maso Family Group, Maso Chalk Factory. We deal with making and selling chalk for schools. Yeah, I'm happy to be here.
Okay.
I'm looking forward to
Karibu sana.
this. Yes, asante sana, karibu sana.
Karibu.
Oh,
We go to our final guest, who's Caroline Njuki. Caroline, if you're on, please kindly put your video or your microphone on, and
Hi,
just greet us
Irene.
and briefly introduce yourself. Hi.
Hi, Irene. Hello. Good to see old friend Caroline from Arusha, and also very, very happy to be joined by other young people. I'm no longer as young as I used to be, but still really enjoy supporting young people in everything that they do. So Caroline Njoke is my name, and I'm the Chief Technical Advisor for Jobs and Education, so essentially training at the ILO in Kenya. It's been a challenging year for everyone around the world, and I'm really grateful every day at a personal level for just the far that I've come. It's been really hard for young people, for businesses, many people who've lost jobs. We are in Africa, where we still have a very high of informality, where people do not have means of income replacement. So once you're out of a job, you're really out of a job. Some really valuable lessons that COVID has taught us, and I hope these are lessons that are painful, of course, but I hope that these are lessons that we're going to take forward, because some of these really constitute what we as the ILO stand for, the decent work principles, ensuring that everyone has some minimum form of social protection, etc. So really happy to be part of this conversation. Over to you, Irene.
Okay, thank you very much. And Caroline, on that, so today's session is basically looking at the changing work environment trends that are there, where we're looking at the advancement in technology and even the shifting demographic dividends that we've seen with the current generation of young people who are becoming more, especially in Africa. And we're also looking at the economic opportunities presented by them. So To you, Caroline, how are the changes in technology particularly shaping the future of work, especially here in East Africa? And how can we build a more inclusive workforce that is mainly youth-driven?
Thank you, Irene. I'm going to be using my phone because that's where my notes are. So I don't know if I should turn off my video. You know, the future of work, the digital revolution. Now we are talking about the fourth industrial revolution. But I keep saying that in Africa, we are not yet at the fourth industrial revolution. And why is this? The World Development Report of 2019 noted that the changing nature of work highlights that the future of work at the global level will be determined by the tension between job losses in old manufacturing sectors that are susceptible to automation and job gains driven by product innovation in new sectors. But is this what the future of work looks like in Africa? The short answer is no, and I'll tell you why. The region, as it is today, though, still has a really excellent opportunity to forge a different path from the rest of the world. Digital technology adoption, of course, has the potential, if well harnessed, to transform the nature of work for all Africans. But sub-Saharan Africa, unlike in other regions, in several ways, including has really lower levels of technology adoption. Yes, of course, I'm Kenyan. Kenya has seen, and other countries in the world, of course, we have leaders, Kenya, South Africa, Egypt, Nigeria. Those are really leaders in tech. But if you look at tech for manufacturing, where are we? And something very simple. When COVID began, and we needed masks produced in large numbers. We needed sanitizers produced in large numbers. We needed, all sorts of, items to help us respond to the pandemic. We froze initially. And why did we freeze? Because we've not been manufacturing, Of course, it took companies to try and repurpose their production lines and respond. If you look at Africa's manufacturing, we only manufacture 10%. 10% of manufacturing is what contributes to our GDP. So the big displacement from jobs that is happening in the rest of the world that's really advanced, and I'm talking about Asia to some extent, Europe and North America. We don't have that in Kenya. Sorry about that. Not just in Kenya, but in Africa, in East Africa as well. The number of jobs that are being displaced by that whole digital revolution are very, very small. But at the same time, there are opportunities that are emerging. Of course, we all know about the gig economy, the digital financial inclusion that enables, people who previously could not have digital transactions do that. We don't think of M-Pesa as major digital, but I'll tell you how. Fishmongers in Kisumu, and this is a story told of a lady whose husband was buying fish in Lodwar, and she had to travel like over 4 hours to go and transact and send the money to the husband to buy fish from Lodwar and then send it back to her. Now she just does this. She could do this from the stall where she's selling her fish. That is what we're really talking about. So, I feel that we should not, we are worried about job losses as being defined by this future of work. There will be minimal. It doesn't mean that they'll be there. And I think what is very important, we should be asking ourselves, what are we going to do with those whose jobs will certainly be displaced? And these are really low jobs. Also, other countries are making major digital shifts, and they are producing, through automation. Then what we are producing here in Africa, in East Africa, in Kenya, we could have a drop of jobs as those other countries that maybe want to produce here start automating and producing at home. So I'd like to give that just a quick introduction, and hopefully we can come back to it. But if Irene, I still have time, I can go on. Please let me know.
Thank you so much, Caroline. I think our moderator has a technical issue. Mika Shako, you're around? Mika, you could hold fort for Irene. Mika?
Should I continue in the meantime?
Yes, you can briefly as I sort that out. If not, I could jump over and support Irene as she reconnects. Briefly.
Okay. All right. Thank you. The other bit that was asked to address is how we can ensure that we have a more inclusive young workforce in this future of work. One is we all are aware of the risk of the digital divide, which is really, unfortunately, affect mostly youth living in rural areas without energy, areas where connectivity is really absent. And this really is a call for public investment in these areas that often investors don't see them to be economically viable. So how is it that we are going to stretch out digital infrastructure so that young people who, for instance, want to take advantage of agribusiness, can connect their produce to markets? I've always kept saying that, young people don't have to be farmers, but that does not mean that young people cannot participate in agribusiness, in the agricultural value chain, as it were. They can be aggregators, they can run the logistics that move goods from farmers and connect it to market. And there's a very good example in Kenya, because I think it's important to highlight that. There's now this move towards establishing the youth innovation centers around the country. And the essence of this is really to bring in a digital infrastructure to centralized places where young people can access them. Is that enough? Absolutely not. I mean, if you think about large counties, vast counties, and you have 1 or 2 youth centers, that's not enough. So they still need to be more innovative and see how we can bring digital infrastructure opportunities to young people. Very, very important is also the need to boost human capital development as an enabler, so that young people can, who are really big part of our population, can meaningfully participate in the economy, that can see that there is improved productivity of especially low-skilled workers where young people are. I will come back to informality. Informality, how is it that we can make businesses formalized? And I don't just mean registering a business and getting a business license. How do we introduce innovation? How do we improve payment systems and reduce down the cost so that businesses can grow, even as we put in efforts towards, having them registered, accessing finance, etc. And I would like to insist also on the need for lifelong learning. We have a HR practitioner on this panel, and it would be good if, I'm sure he will probably speak to this. The reality is that existing jobs as of today are requiring different set of skills. And that is part of the discussion of the future of work. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So how is it that even as young people are in these jobs, they can continue to get a new set of skills that allows them to retain jobs or even being able to transition to other jobs? I was watching a video of Sandy riders. Sandy is a motorbike logistics or errands, company. And, they were saying with COVID, because there was, of course, so much businesses, people have been afraid to go out, especially initially. And now Sandy had to invest in new communication skills because there was so much interaction between their riders and clients want to have a good customer experience. And, they were saying they learned new skills. And these skills will, of course, is making their job better now, but these skills will be so important going forward, even if they wanted to start their own businesses. And lastly, in less than 1 minute, the need to strengthen and expand social protection. Caroline mentioned, the impact on workers has been really catastrophic. We are talking about in Kenya, 1.7 million jobs lost. I don't think there are 1.7 million jobs lost. There are more than that. There are more than those jobs lost because some people have just not reported, they've not been captured. What do we do? How is it that we, going forward, the future of work is characterized by employment protection, by income replacement? You know, how is it that we are going to ensure, to sort of enable enterprises to take on more risks, you know, through social protection means? So let me stop there for now. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Caroline. I see our moderator, Irene, is back. Thank you for all those nuggets of gold you've shared, Caroline. And Irene, just to give you a heads up, we were just waiting for you to log back in. If you can hear us, Caroline Juki has just submitted on the question you asked. Probably she alluded to the HR practitioner, Oliver Otieno. Probably could pose the question you had prepared to Oliver. Irene, over to you. Irene? Sorry, Irene seems to be having a connection issue. Probably, Oliver, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Allow us to transition to you. The question that was prepared alludes to the need for lifelong learning, reskilling, what Caroline just mentioned. At L'Oreal specifically, do you see that, especially during the pandemic, the beauty experts in the people you interact to, have you practically seen the need to reskill and retool as a HR practitioner? How has it, more so in 2020, become a pertinent issue? Lifelong learning, reskilling, retooling. How has that been a factor in 2020 and moving forward? Thank you.
Sounds good. Sounds good. Thank you very much. So I think Caroline really put this in a more candid way when she mentioned that, you know, today more than ever, we need to continuously learn to upskill and reskill. What I have noticed, even within our business, is that this particular pandemic, someone was mentioning that it condensed a revolution that was supposed to, you know, take place over 10 years in a period that's shorter than a year. And therefore, businesses saw a condition where things that were already in plan had to be accelerated. So we're talking about strategic agility. So things had to be done really, really, really fast. And for our organization, I think one of the key areas that stood out was the space of, you know, digital and e-commerce upskilling. We had started a project around upskilling our merchandisers, our trade representatives, and our commercial team on the digital competencies. So what we saw was that, you know, when now we were forced to go work remotely, we were put in a situation where the customer experience depended so much on these merchandisers who now could not interact face to face with the consumers. So we had to, you know, again, accelerate the skills of our salespeople, the skills of our merchandisers to engage consumers and to extend that experience within, you know, a remote position. And this meant that they had to be, you know, more accessible on digital platform. They had to respond to questions a bit faster. They had to learn, you know, the art of responding to questions even when they don't know the exact answer in an amiable way, so that you don't lose the consumer at the end of the day. So we found ourselves in a place where we had to, you know, accelerate some of these things. So it's true that today, something that is more important is also learning how to learn, because we grew up in a system where we are trained, you know, learning takes place in stages, and therefore it has to be delivered in a particular way by someone, and there's experiential element. But we find ourselves in a space where we have to relearn how we learn. And that means studying even ourselves and becoming self-aware to understand that when do we master more? Can we take leadership and, you know, initiative to begin understanding that the direction of skills is gelling towards this, you know, particular area, and therefore I need to gain that mastery. So we are trying to put our staff in a premise where they're able to self-identify and know that these are the areas of weaknesses that I have. They are very critical to the business. This business unit is under my ownership, and therefore it requires me, even before I am told, to begin learning this particular skill. So to better mitigate this, we have put in place some systems that enable staff to go ahead and start consuming content on their mobile phones, on their laptops, remotely, wherever they are. And what we do as a HR team that is in charge of learning, therefore, is just to give pointers and direction that commercial function is transitioning towards this direction. You need to have this kind of aptitude. HR function is transitioning to this side, and you need to have this. So we just give them pointers, and then they're able to pick. And what we do from our back end is now to track the data and see what kind of content is being consumed more, and are we able to leverage on that to also tailor some in-class sessions that can build on that. So I think learning is very critical at the moment, and we need to continuously upskill ourselves to be able to remain relevant.
Thank you very much, Oliver, for giving us that detailed insight. Allow us to transition now. We cross the border from Malindi all the way to the capital of East Africa, as Collins refers to it. And sitting at the capital of East Africa, we have the chairperson, the executive director of the East African Trade Union Confederation, Ms. Caroline Hamati Mugala. Ms. Caroline has vast experience in the labor movement, the trade unions, and we may not have an idea as to how the pandemic has affected the thousands of workers under your trade union confederation. So probably, is there hope in terms of the future of work? Do we see more job losses just for the short term and potential for job growth within your confederation moving forward? Or what's the situation as we speak? What's the charter with the large movement of workers that you are coordinating? If you could give us a picture, we'll really appreciate. Over to you, Ms. Caroline.
Thank you very much, my comrades. I hope it's okay for me to call you comrade.
Yes, it is.
Because as trade unions, we call each other comrades. And I think Caroline has already given a synopsis in terms of the effect on working people. And if I look at the current ILO latest monitor on COVID, in East Africa alone, and when I was just looking at the number coming in Africa, East Africa has the highest number of job losses. We are talking over 35 million jobs lost in East Africa only. That is first quarter, second quarter, and third quarter figures. In the first quarter, when COVID hit, there was around a loss of 3 million. In second quarter, it was around 12 million. Third quarter, we've reported 19 million. And just looking at those figures and what my colleague Caroline mentioned, in Africa, we know very well when one person loses a job, at least 10 people are being pulled down into poverty or into, their livelihoods have been put at stake because at least one African worker actually supports over 10 people. So I'm just looking at the time that the pandemic has come. We had barely recovered from the economic crisis. And the economic crisis, the first casualties were actually, workers, the number of jobs that were lost during the financial crisis. Though East Africa of late has been, experiencing some promised growth of over, 5%. If I look at the figures that were recorded by the African Development Bank in 2019, which is actually a higher figure of growth when you look at the 3% average that is put at the world. So if anything, this pandemic is actually, teaching us that, when we are looking at the future of work, we need to identify solutions to the enormous economic challenges that we are currently facing. And these challenges are double. when it comes to young people. And Caroline has talked about digitalization, and from coming from a trade union background, we are seeing digitalization currently contributing to fragmentation of work. We are seeing breakdown of employment relationships and social dumping. People are now being told to work at home in terms of their rights, in terms of their working condition at home. We are seeing a quick rise in gender-based violence in terms of the women that are working at work. So if you are to discuss in terms of policy discussion on the future of work, I think we need to avoid just being confined in this narrow perspective of talking about new technologies that are being implanted into a system that I will say has already failed workers, and how we are protecting platform workers, the challenges that Uber workers are facing. Who do we hold responsible in terms of ensuring that their rights are protected? But also just looking at what is happening in the world. If I look at the EPZ workers, the EPZ workers that have lost their jobs due to massive cancellation of companies, whereby they have cancelled their orders. What happens? So we need to look at policies that will actually rein in on the power of global corporations, and also the financial sector has to be reined in to ensure that we secure a decent job, and also looking at a fair share for the working people through wages and social protection, as Caroline had mentioned. Because I think unless this changes, the transition into the future of work will be disorderly. We are already seeing it. It will be corporate dominated, and it will deepen insecurities. It will deepen insecurities that we are already experiencing now, and inequalities, further. Take for example Amazon. You all know that Jeff currently is worth 200 billion. But when you look at what has been happening around Amazon and the right of workers that are working in those huge warehouses of Amazon, Amazon cannot still afford to pay paid sick leave. They cannot, there are challenges in terms of paying, hazard pay, issues around personal protective equipment for thousands of their warehouse workers. This is the kind of future of work for our youth in these big tech companies that are actually taking over. So we need government and businesses to understand the transition into a highly digitalized economy must be a just transition, with investments in the occupation sectors and communities affected in to maximize quality and productivity benefit. But also, as Caroline has said, relooking at our wage and social protection policy. What I normally say, we need a pay raise. And currently we've had a stagnation of wages. If you look throughout East Africa, the wages are not growing. The taxes are growing, profit for corporations are growing, but the wages have been falling. And with millions of workers in supply chains, and this is also in East Africa, the informal economy struggling to survive, a majority of them actually being young people. And the time, has come for, informed analysis on the benefits and cost of a basic income. Do we still need to continue paying people a basic income in this current, working environment? But also, I think the other thing that we need to look at is to look at policies that would be able to drive, to drive the close in terms of the gender gap. Issues around equal payment for work of equal value. Because currently the trends are the gender gap of the global gender gap of around 23% will not be closed until 2069. So if you're looking at the future of work, it must be a future of work where women and men are equal, because we know exactly where women are in the world of work. But another thing that I would also like us to engage further, as you know, the young people need to be on the table as these policies are being formulated and are being discussed, is the issue around taxation. There has been a lot of a lot of discussion around illicit financial flow. And if I could just quickly throw to you some of the figures on the studies that have been done, particularly in sub-Saharan Africa, between 1980 to 2018, sub-Saharan Africa has received nearly 2 trillion in foreign direct investment, that is FDI, and ODA, Official Development Assisted. But we've received 2 trillion, but over the same period of time, sub-Saharan Africa has lost over 1 trillion in illicit financial flow. So policies that will manage rampant tax avoidance, evasion, especially by multinational and the finance sector, which is clearly depriving our governments of revenue needed to deliver the quality, you know, public service and social program in place. So we need to have, you know, a taxation that ensures that corporates pay the dues to the government. But also, you know, issues around climate change and industrial transformation. It's key to achieving the agenda on just transition based on rights, social dialogue, investment in transitional and negotiation change in industry. But also another last policy area that we are also working on and also advocating is the issue around policy coherence. I think if there is one problem that we have in East Africa is the issue of policy coherence. Do our trade policies speak to our investment policies? Do they speak to our agricultural policies? And do these policies being put in place leading to creation of decent jobs? When we get into a trade agreement, I know right now Kenya and US are negotiating a free trade agreement. How is this free trade agreement going to benefit Kenyans? How is it going to affect, you know, the working people of Kenya? Can a milk farmer in Kericho be able to compete with a milk farmer in the US? Because we know that, you know, the developing countries give a lot of, you know, subsidies to their farmers. So when you are talking about, you know, developing agriculture in Tanzania, agricultural is the backbone of our development. And then we get into an economic partnership agreement that is, you know, removing tariffs to protect that peasant farmer in Kenya or in Tanzania, in Uganda. So the policy coherence, it's really important, because sometimes you look what we are getting into the trade agreements and what our vision is in agriculture and our industrial policies, they don't speak to each other. So, and then in conclusion, I think I would just like to finish by saying the other thing in terms of the policy process and policies that we need to look into is the whole adaptation of the UN Sustainable Goals. I think this, you know, provide an agenda for development of decent work at its heart. And it has a whole goal, goal 8, that talks about decent work. So if you're looking at the future of work, a future that has decent work, we need to be able to move away from the SDG, you know, simply being aspiration, but for them to be able to provide, you know, the universal framework for decisions about the future of work and its importance in terms of implementation of the SDGs, and also looking at particularly the role of government in terms of ensuring that, you know, East African countries are able to to implement the sustainable development goals. Thank you, my dear.
Thank you so much, Caroline, for those insights, wonderful insights. Probably I had some figures at the beginning of your submission. You were mentioning 19 million, that's
yes.
Job losses East Africa-wide.
Yes, that's East Africa worldwide, and Caroline can help me on this. It's around over 100 and something million. I will just pull up the figure and I will give you the figures just before we in my concluding remarks. Yeah.
Thank you so much for that. And I think this would be a wonderful point to bring back our moderator. I see Irene. Irene, have you managed to reconnect? Irene?
Yes.
Irene, you can hear us?
Thank you. Yes, thank you, Franklin. Can you hear me?
Yes, I hear you. We can. You can take charge. We were transitioning to Collins and Kevin, so you could take it away from here.
Thank you, Caroline, and as well as Caroline Njuki for that wonderful remarks. Caroline and Njuki actually mentioned something around the skills around that we need in the current setup. So this goes on to Collins. Do you think that young people have been disproportionately affected by the pandemic, and what skills do young people need for them to succeed and also prepare for the future of work?
Thank you very much, Irene, and to the previous speakers for the excellent points. I think to address your question, let's go back in time a little bit before the pandemic and look at what was the situation before then for these young people. Let's take December 2019 as an example. And already then, before even the pandemic, young people were already disenfranchised. If you look at across the region, the majority of those that are unemployed are young people. Many of those that even do have this short-term employment are in the informal sector, which has been mentioned a lot today, and it's really important for us to remember because I think it contextualizes the future of work for the region and Africa as a whole. In the informal sector, some that do have short-term jobs, but also many that are micro-entrepreneurs. So they're self-employed by themselves, they don't have other employees, living on a day-to-day basis. And so I would like for us to make sure that we remember this in our discussion of the policies that I previously mentioned to ensure that we have these young micro-entrepreneurs on the streets in mind as well, because this is the majority. So if you look at that as the majority, they were already very vulnerable with less access to housing, less access to finance, all of which could help you and build your resilience in face of a pandemic. And so enter COVID-19 in this already disenfranchised position, which really amplified the vulnerabilities and exposed the inequalities. And we've seen already the inequality previously mentioned at a gender by the previous speaker, but also in terms of urban-rural divides, and also in terms of skills. I think that speaks to your question. And now how do we then, or what is needed for these young people to rebound? And through Ubuntu, we've seen particular skills that could help young people even flourish in times of pandemic, because it is not everybody that had a negative effect through COVID. And I'll give examples for that. So the first skills we really think are key in building resilience is in terms of problem solving. Problem solving, look in terms of packaging it as in terms of entrepreneurial mindset, the ability to see a problem and see all that creates, how can we turn this into an opportunity? And to give you examples of this, during the pandemic, where we had an entrepreneur that was working in tourism, and of course, tourism badly hit across the world, but they decided to repurpose their business and they started producing kits that basically protection equipment that could help people in terms of COVID. So one example there. Second example of an entrepreneur that saw that before their business model was all about delivering agricultural products to hotels and corporates. But during the pandemic, they saw that also now people need this delivered to their home directly, and they increased demand in this, so they pivoted their business model towards them. So this entrepreneurial mindset, this ability to see a problem and see how can I turn this into an opportunity is really key. And also it helps to change this gloom image that we have. I don't think young people do not need to be spoon-fed. They do not need to be handed necessarily money, but it's more about creating the conducive environment for them to be able to take advantage of these opportunities. Second key set of skills, as we mentioned already, in terms of digital skills. And in terms of digital skills, I think sometimes people get scared. Digital skills, when we trace it together with fourth industrial revolution, etc., it sounds something that's very far that many young people think that, okay, maybe this is too much for me. I don't have the background on this. But we can divide digital skills into soft and hard skills. The soft basic skills of can we use Microsoft Excel or all the other Office suites? Can we use Google Sheets, etc. for now collaboration? That is the new key way of working at the moment. Can we use social media to market our businesses? Because the fourth industrial revolution and what we're living in now is not limited to manufacturing. It is across all sectors, and it is not a choice that we have or a luxury that we have. All businesses now need to adapt digital ways of operating, even if they're not a digital business in itself. And a key one of that is social media marketing, to make sure that you're really reaching more customers. And we saw this really picking up across the pandemic time, when young people using more social media professionally to advertise their businesses and sell through the pandemic. And then you have the hard skills which are also needed of coding, design of UX, UI, etc. That are also really, really important to make sure that we have more local homegrown solutions that are very well tailored to our context, instead of having to rely on international players. And I think the last skill that we think is really key for young people to learn now is, as we mentioned, I think by Oliver before, this lifelong learning. Because now we have, I think this problem still remains of our education system, or us depending on the formal education system, which only serves the minority of our people. And even those that serve, many come out with, we know, skills mismatch with what is really needed in the market. And now this is even going to get even worse going forward, because according to the World Economic Forum, in the next 10 years, we're going to see more technical advancements than we have seen in the last 250 years combined. And so if we were already struggling to prepare people for the world before, can you imagine what's happening now? So this ability to really learn new skills on the go, not depending on the formal institution. I think everybody needs to be involved, from the existing actors, including the innovation hubs, like Ubuntu Hub and others across the region, from NGOs, including private sectors, including young people themselves, using their mobile phones, leveraging the internet, and many courses, that many of which are even free, that we can learn, because it's now we have to be able to learn on our own, because the things are changing too quickly for us to depend on anybody else or any formal institution.
Okay. Thanks for that, Collins. Thank you. Thank you for that, Collins. You really lined it up around the digital skills, the problem-solving skills, as well as the technical skills. Let's hear from one of the young people. We have Donald Chuma. Donald, tell us your experience as a young person who's educated and has been looking for work during the crisis. Tell us
Irene?
I think we lost one.
We lost Irene. Donald, did you get the question, Donald? It seems there was a challenge. Kevin, you're in the call, Kevin? Kevin?
Yes,
Kevin,
yes,
Steven?
I'm in.
Yeah, probably we could transition to your question as a CEO in the chalk factory. If you could give us some insights. We know that Tanzania may not have been affected as much in terms of mobility and movement of people in the virus, but of course it's part of the global economy. And how is your company adapting to the current situation, and especially your workers? And how do you seek to position yourself for the future with such a huge logistical organization that you're running with the factory? Kindly, Kelvin.
Yeah, thank you. It's very challenging. COVID is it taking place at the globally. So every company from the strategy got attacked, and at the end of the day, we all suffer the same cause. In Tanzania, we thank God that we don't even going on the lockdown, but for me and my company, it's been a little bit hard because for several 2 months, I think, we closed the schools. So, my company depend on the schools. So at that time, we're suffering a lot because we need to stop the production and we allow our employees to go back home. And my company hired more than 35 people. So that I get the good point from Njoki that even one people one people in Africa depend with 10 and more people depend from him or her. So it's very challengeable at that time. But for me, I want to put a great mark on individual and organization leader to provide more inclusive and sustainable job opportunity for this time. For me, I can see that for Africa, as Africa and East Africa, we have a great future on job opportunity, but we don't have bright future on job opportunity. As the first speaker speak Njoki, I can remember I said that we depend on as East Africa and Africa, we only manufacture 10% of our needs. So most of most of our needs we need from we import from outside. So we still have a good and great opportunity to make job opportunity for this percent, for this dependence percent we depend from outside. That's why I can, from my experience, I used to, for many decades, our country used to import chalk from outside. We used to import chalk from China, India, Pakistan. But after seeing that opportunity, I decided to start the factory that can solve the scarcity of the chalk and dependence of chalk from outside. So I can see that job opportunity, that we have job opportunity, but everyone need to do a party. You can see as individual, you need to do a party, as organization, and the government as well. And the biggest challenge we have in Africa is the combination. Some of the panelists speak say that we have a bad combination between policy maker and policy organization, which come together. You can have some you can decide to employ yourself, but the situation or the situation of job opportunity is very hard to make you to sustain on that opportunity that you start to do. That's why for us, even simple for us as our youth-led organization, our startups, our factory, we used to for now we used to pay more than 9 taxes. You can imagine we pay more than 9 taxes. So for this opportunity, you can start you can try to start your startups. You can try to employ yourself, but at the end of the day, you can get a lot of challenge to sustain on that that opportunity you start to grab. So that is a big challenge we have. But what can we do? We can still have a chance to push. We can say that because of this challenge, we need to sleep and wait for miracle. We can go on that way. We still have to push and to make this job opportunity and decent work for young people happen on reality. But for African, all people need to come together and do his part. The biggest challenge we have is government leader and policy makers. There is no friendly policy for people who come, or for youth who come to the line and start the idea and start to create the job opportunity. There is many barriers to reach that target. When you said your target that you need to create job, or you need to create this job to other young people, there's a lot of barrier you can face. Many of young people go down, and at the end of the day, they decide to do other things, or to get to be there, to think that to start my own business is hard. It's better to be employed. So all that mindset keep to say that we need to be employed, we need to be employed, we need to be employed. At the end of the day, you can see that there is no many people think that about creating job. They all think about being employed. So at the end of the day, we got many of unemployed young people. Got no crisis. At the end of the day, people, if they don't have work, the nation can go on crisis, because everyone will fight to have a place to work.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you so much, Kelvin. Stephen, you mentioned that you have 35 workers, right? Did I hear you correctly?
Yes. Yeah, I'm correct.
And just a follow-up question: how are they, as we speak, in terms of? I presume most of them are young people. Practically, sure. How are they coping in terms of moving forward? You mentioned specifically that they may not have been as affected, but moving forward, do you feel that there is a retooling and reskilling plan that they're adopting in terms of preparing them for the future, the 35 workers that you have?
Yeah, currently we already returned on the production. So, but this period when we are stopping the production operation, we have learned. Every people learn how to add something. You know, the world in these days, they no longer read the weak people. Every people need to be stronger to fight in this world. So we have that time we have changed in order to protect our employee. We change. We transform our business, and we come up with another businesses in order to help them to survive, because it's very hard to survive. So we come up with we create another business so that people can get another experience and work on another field. Because in this life you need to switch. You know, COVID teach us to switch. If you used to make chalk for schools, and there is no longer student going to school, you need to switch to other business. So that time we have to switch to other business in order to survive and make our employees survive.
Thank you so much. Thanks so much, Kelvin. I see Irene has tried to come back. I hope we can hear her clearly. Irene, can you hear us?
Yes, I can.
You can take it away from here. There was a pending question to Oliver Rivaria, the one that seeks to deal with talent acquisition and how it has changed during COVID-19. Probably you could take it away from here.
Yes. Let me just put off my video because I'm having some issues on Zoom. So Oliver, the question that was addressed to you is, how has COVID-19 affected talent acquisition in the organizations, and what structural adjustments have large and small organizations have had to deal with?
Yeah, so on to that, I think most organizations have had to relook at a way to optimize the resources that they have. In fact, now more than ever, organizations have tried to come up with an intelligent way to minimize the resources that they have in terms of people. possible.
Yeah, for sure.
The the shrinking size of business, they found themselves in a place where they had to think resources and do an analysis from department just to see in terms of people structure, what's the best way to run the business. And as a result of that, we have seen headcount freezes, we have seen headcount cuts in departments, and in some of the plans that we were having, around recruitment stalled. So, of course, this to the candidate side, it means there are very minimal jobs that are coming up, and therefore opportunities do not exist. I think this alludes to what Caroline already mentioned around the job losses. So these are the job losses that we're talking about when they're mentioning the figures there. So while we're saying that, there are also some emergent roles that are still difficult. So it's a very tricky balance. So when we're seeing loss of jobs in these other areas like commercial functions, the normal traditional departments that we have a problem sourcing for roles in e-commerce, digital heads, digital executives, and therefore these emergent functions still remain vacant for a long period of time. So I think there are also other opportunities that have arisen in the market that have not been filled yet due to lack of skills and competencies in the market. And in fact, when you do find someone, you are either headhunting or they're already earning a salary that is way too high above budget. So we are seeing this interesting balance in terms of opportunities that we have in the corporate space. But just look at it in terms of what was and what has been as a result of COVID. We have seen a lot of reorganization in department just to see how best to optimize business due to that shrinking size of turnover that we are seeing as a result of COVID. I don't know that answers the question, Irene.
Yeah, that answers the question. Over to Stephen, Kevin Stephen. Finally, what do you think is the policies that are needed to encourage equality and economic justice, as well as what do you think is the changing nature of work for the workers?
Okay, thank you. As I said, many of our policies not very friendly for our business, because they only they're not the only. When I look at it, I don't get the clear picture that the policymaker makes that policy for us. We have a lot of taxes for our business. Even you start the business today, I can give you a testimony from Tanzania. You can start the business today and hold more than 90% of the capital you can use on taxes, because people, they don't even look at what you got or what you want to do. They don't even dare to help you to expand. All they want is they want the taxes. So we need to push for the policy, for the good policy that can develop our business, can develop our entrepreneur, especially youth. Last year I was in the meeting at the parliament in Tanzania. I was invited there, and one of the issue I was putting on the table is that there is a lot of taxes policy on youth business, but also youth can never get the money without mortgage or without bond. So how can we survive? Just imagine you have youth from schools, from university. He don't have anything. He don't have farm. He don't have houses. And you tell him that if you want a loan, you need to push something. It's not removable. So that's the biggest challenge on policy. So we need to focus on that challenge, on that policy. But that challenge, both parties that they have challenge. Youth they have challenge, and government they have challenge also. Some youth, when they get the loan, they don't even go to do something, or to do that thing that you need to do. So we can give the loan. At the end of the day, he or she can do nothing for that loan. That's the experience too for the youth, because to work with the youth are very challengeable also. For me and my company, we get the loan from Minister of Education and Minister for Youth. 2016, we get the rules to start our business. Start small. We start our business on we start our business with a small capacity. We start to make chalk by using hand. We use hand and boxes to make chalks simply. At the end of the day, they see our courage, our commitment on that, and they put to us another one. So we start to grow up. But the policy, speaking of the policy we have is not very friendly on our business. We need to change, because in order to fix that 90% of our manufacturing, of our needs of manufacturing from outside, we need to invest and to have a good policy to our innovator, our startups, our SMG. For on all business, we can have fixed at least 6% of our need from outside. But if we keep putting the strong or the unfriendly policy, you can even still struggling and say we need to have manufacturing, we need to manufacture our own, we need to manufacture our own. At the end of the day, we can fail, and we can still doing a mark time from where we are. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Stephen, for that. Let me cross over to the final part of the session, which is the question and answer. However, before we delve into that, one of our panelists will just give their final remarks, because they're leaving at the moment. So I'd like to invite Caroline Njuki to just give you final remarks on what can individuals, governments, and even organizations do to promote more inclusive and sustainable job opportunities for young people, as well as decent work.
Thank you, Irene. And I'm really sorry that I've got to rush to another Zoom call with colleagues in Washington. I had addressed a bit of this question, I think, at the beginning. But there are two things that I would like to say as we close. There is a great need that some countries in the region have realized for massive public employment programs. And the reason is that it's quite clear that we are not out of the woods yet, and we do not know how long the pandemic is going to last and what the impact of the economy will be eventually. But what we know for sure is that every day, even as much as some businesses are bouncing back, jobs continue to be lost, because if there are new lockdown measures that are implemented, we've seen this in Europe, we hope that it will not happen in Africa, but we do not know. Then businesses are impacted on their reduction in working hours, and there's very little hiring. Of course, there is the hiring that one of the previous speakers, I think it was the colleague from L'Oreal. You know, there are those opportunities that are being sought to respond to the realities of this pandemic, but globally, generally, right now is the worst time to be looking for a job, generally. Now, how is it that we can ensure that young people still continue to have incomes? There is, you know, as we continue, there is a lot of infrastructure development in East Africa, and I'll speak to that. How is it that we can use investments geared towards infrastructure to get young people to jobs even though it's for the short term. What do I mean? There's labor-intensive public works, employment-intensive programs. How can we use that to even introduce new sustainable technologies for delivering our infrastructure, for delivering community assets? You know, where is it that machines have not completely taken over and we still need people things collapsing as people work, but the reality is, how do we use those opportunities to maximize on the you know, to get as many young people and recently we've been the population of centers in the developed world, you know, and this is because it gives, which of course is way advanced. We've talked about that, but it's also an opportunity to create, because skills have the potential to also lead you to your own and very quickly. But that is not just it. We also need, and Caroline has spoken about this, do we
Sorry, Caroline,
have in
your
place
line is not clear.
that then enables young people to start manufacturing? And I'm not, sorry, Olivia?
You're breaking up, Caroline. So
Can you
just
hear me?
kindly repeat. Right now we can hear you.
Just stop off. Is it better now, Irene?
Yes, it's better.
Okay, so I'll just turn off my video. Maybe it's that fitting. You know, so the role of TVET really is something that we look in East Africa, but it's not, it cannot be TVET for TVET's sake. It has response that has just spoken about manufacturing of chalk. There are so many elements that we should be creating as part of our solutions, because in so create, we are enabling jobs, but that has to be linked to, for instance, fiscal policies, you know, and monetary policies. How is it that we are enabling young people to access resources? You know, I mean, as a young person, I tried very many times to access funding for businesses, and it wasn't successful. Even with a salaried job, it still is challenging to access credit. How is it that we can have, you know, we should dare dream of credit guarantee that allows young people to borrow and get businesses off the ground. And finally, the role of active labor market policies. When people are, young people are full, how is it that we support them to be able to transition world of work? Because it is really challenging. You've been in a TVET, you've been in university, and then how do you even start trying to get into a job? Career council, this is something that we really need to revamp in our institutions of learning, TVETs, to universities, etc. And also guiding them young on the changing world of work. What we've been talking about, that skills that are being offered within the learning space. Yes, of course, we should improve as much of those employability opportunities to improve their skills and increase their employability. So career counseling is going to be very key, and we need also very strong labor market intermediation. Africa, of course, we have very many private employment agencies. The role of public employment services, government-led services that maybe don't cost much, but that also young people can go to seek, the National Employment Authority in Kenya. I don't know what they are called in other agencies. We need those revamped. They can also be public employment services of the 21st century that can be information to young people across, whether they are in the informal sector or the trends are, what are the skills that are required, and how it is that they can improve that. So I want to say that it's not all gloom. There are many opportunities, and such forums really help us to share perspectives on what it is that we can do. But then the future of work that I look at that we should have must absolutely be human-centered. It must have people at the heart of it. And all those elements that we are talking about, social protection, lifelong learning, those are the things that really put people at the center of work. So thank you very much for the opportunity to engage with all of you.
Thank you very much, Caroline. We can now release you.
Thank you.
So I'd like to open up this part of the session to the participants. Kindly, if you have any question to any participants or panelists, just kindly put on your microphone or your video and address that particular question to the panel. Kindly, we can have Donald. Donald, if you can be able to recap on what exactly you were telling us about your experience as a young, an educated young person who's looking for work. So you can just complete what you were saying. Yes, Zerihun. Just put on your microphone and tell us your question. Zerihun? Donald or Zerihun?
Yes, hello.
Hello, hi Donald.
Hi all.
Hi. So Donald, you are telling us about what exactly are the opportunities that have been presented as a young person who's been looking for work during these tough economic times, and what challenges have you encountered?
As young people, we have faced so many challenges, especially those educated young people, in terms of searching for a job, especially this difficult time. Many companies have shut down, and it is so. Hello.
Hello, we can hear you. Yes, Donald. Hello, Donald.
Maybe he could write his comments by text in the chat.
Yes. So Donald, kindly just post your comment via chat, and then I'll be able to read out to the rest of the participants. And do we have any other person who has a comment or a concern that they'd like addressed by the panelists? So as we continue, So I'll just give 2 minutes to each panelist to give your closing remarks on what exactly do individuals, governments, and organizations need to do to produce more inclusive and sustainable job opportunities. I know some of you have already addressed it in your opening statements. However, can you just summarize so that as we close the session, every young person can be able to have that key takeaway? So I'll begin with Caroline Kamati.
Thank you, Irene. I think for me, what I would tell the youth, we have a slogan in the trade union movement, particularly when we are working for the informal economy, and the slogan is nothing for us without us. So I think the first thing that organization, governments need to do is to open up spaces for young people to be able to engage in the whole discussion of future of work. Because the future of work belongs to them, not to me. That future is theirs, and they need to be part and parcel of this discussion, because it's very sad when you go to meetings discussing about the future of work for the youth, and you look at the mean age that is in that discussion, it's nowhere near youthfulness. So I think the first thing that organizations, government, or whoever is discussing, the discussions need to have the youth on the table. Because I normally say, if you are not part and parcel of the cooking that is the cooking that is happening in the kitchen, you will definitely be the meal that will be served on the table. And sometimes the meal that is served on the table, or most of the time, it's not a meal to your liking. You would have cooked it differently. So I think that, the beginning, I was just watching a clip when just before the meeting started. I can't remember who the speaker was, and the speaker was, gave the mean age of leaders in Africa, and she gave a figure of 60%. So those are the people that are driving the agenda for the future of work for the youth. So we need to provide, for my organization, we've made a deliberate effort to ensure that youth are part and parcel of our decision making process in the organization. So it starts with me, it starts with you, as people who are given those key spaces, people who have been given those authority spaces, those leaders, whether you are in a big space, whether you are in a small space. Every time you do your work, I think the question that you should be asking yourself is, how am I involving youth, or how am I bringing the voices of the young people on the table? We should not make decisions and policies for them. We should make decisions and policies with them. And someone already talked about the generational gap that we need to bridge. It's a bridge that we need to build. We have the experience as the older generation. They also bring on table their own experience as the generation for the future. So we don't need to make policies that are actually destroying this future for the young people. They will not have any future to lead. You can't tell them you're the leaders for tomorrow. No. We have to start from now, because there might not be tomorrow. There might not be a Kenya for them to govern when that future comes. Thank you.
Thank you, Caroline. That is quite very... there's a member here who's asked, how can young people access working capital? So like this question to go to Collins. Collins is a founder and a CEO of youth-led company, how can young people be able to access working capital? And also give us your closing remarks.
Great question. And I think a question that young entrepreneurs across the region, across the world really ask themselves accessing capital. I can share from our experience, we've seen there are different sources of capital. Definitely capital is available. That's one thing we have learned. It is not easy to access, and I sympathize with the person asking the question, but it is available, and to see how do we then access it. There are different channels that are available depending on the enterprise. Unfortunately, I don't know what type of enterprise the question is referring to, but there are, as we've heard here, public funds that are available. Depending on the country that you are, many countries across the region have set aside some funds to support young and female entrepreneurs, many of which sometimes do require you to come as a group in order to access these funds that could be used as working capital or elsewhere. There are also funds available from development partners, again, depending on the country. During also the COVID pandemic, if you just look online, there's a lot of donors that have provided funds, particularly for COVID response. And so they're providing some in terms of grants with varying amounts as working capital or as investment. There is also then the more traditional forms of capital from venture capitalists, business angels, etc., that can provide some funding as well. And these also are able to provide, if you have good relationships with them, support even in the pandemic, because they know what we're going through. And so some are also providing working capital for that. But maybe what key want to mention is the one that is often the easiest to access, which is our friends, family, and fools, as they call it. If it's a small amount that you're looking for, then that can also be a viable source. And many people do tap their immediate networks to enable to access this capital. And digital has also helped doing that, because now there is more crowd investing platforms in different countries where you can put on a project and you can fundraise, and people can give you a little donations towards this project. So happy to discuss more offline about accessing finance. Just what is always important when you're accessing finance is to remember, what are you going to use the finance for, so that it does not become a cost as opposed to a lever of growth for you, and that finance should never be the end goal, right? That finance is, that the cash is to help us to achieve a particular level of growth, because many of us get trapped in always looking for more and more funding. In terms of the closing remarks from Irene, I think I would say that the future of work must be youth-led. As Caroline just previously mentioned, that really this future of work belongs to the young people. It must be youth-led and we believe, and we've seen even during this pandemic, the young people have the ideas, young people have the passion, they have the resolve to innovate and develop their businesses, even in the face of the pandemic. What we need to do now is to create the conducive environment. And I will break it down into three things, as we mentioned, discussing a lot today, is to first invest in practical skills. Practical skills that can enable the young East Africans, young Africans in general, to take advantage of all the opportunities that are now available to us, because there is I think it's a matter of urgency. If we don't invest now in the necessary skills at the rate of which the world is developing, we're going to be left very far behind. And again, it's about not only investing these for the graduates or the university graduates, which represent a minority in our countries, but really democratizing these practical skills to enable anybody, whether they're in rural, urban, etc., to take advantage of what is offered by the Fourth Industrial Revolution. And I really emphasize on practical, and for us to move away from the love that we have of certificates and very theoretical courses, really practical. The second investment I think we need to make to create a more inclusive and prosperous work environment is in our policies. Kelvin has mentioned before the challenges he's had, even as a manufacturing business. Now imagine those of the entrepreneurs are trying to bring in digital solutions that are being asked for. Where is your address? Where's your physical address, as a necessity for them to register their business, or as an e-commerce business, which things are not applicable anymore in the 21st century. And so we really need to adapt our policies to create this enabling environment for our young entrepreneurs in particular, because I think this is the driving engine of growth across the region. And lastly, I would say to invest in digital infrastructure. We saw the challenges of the acceleration that we had to adapt to as a result of the pandemic, of poor internet connection. We've experienced it during the call today, of data still being too expensive. If you look at, according to the Alliance for Affordable Internet, the internet in Africa is still too expensive. It's meant to be 1 GB, should be less than 2% of your average monthly income. Across Africa, it's roughly 8%. So still too expensive and poor connection. So we really need to, I think now as we think of investing in more traditional infrastructure of roads and bridges, etc., which we definitely need, but we also must consider our digital infrastructure to ensure that we are providing that conducive environment for the youth to lead us in this future of work and giving them that opportunity to do so. Thank you very much, Irene.
Thank you, Collins. So to our next panelist, that is Oliver. Oliver, I'd like you to address this particular question that has been posted by Samuel, who says that at this time, I'm one who has been pushed towards starting a business, and the future of work in my context is looking at business process management / automation, robotic process applications, artificial intelligence, and other associated integrations. The old skill set may be technically knocked out. So are the youth ready for this? What, in your thoughts, are they doing to match this? As you also provide your
Great, so thank you, Irene. Okay, sounds good. So I'll also just request that after the closing remark, I'll kindly log off and attend to some other issues here. Yes, so to the question that has been asked by Samuel, I think what we're looking at here is, change in business, change in needs, change in skills that we need to quickly match up to. I know there's a lot of talk around artificial intelligence. There's a lot of talk around big data, Internet of Things, and all that. I would not say that at the moment we are ready to quickly move on in this, but it's something that we need to start thinking around very critically. For most people at the moment, it's around being able to crunch big data and therefore have the right analytical skills to take advantage of what we are getting in terms of the various data points that we are coming, because due to the various touch points, wearables, and the devices that we have, we are generating a huge amount of information that we can use to generate some intelligence that can drive business. I think that's a good way, a good spot to start in this direction towards artificial intelligence, robotics, as we build on those skills. So it's a question of upskilling. I am glad that today we have various platforms on, where we can quickly learn on coding and all these other elements. I know Harvard University offered free courses during the pandemic. I know Microsoft did a good number, and Google also. So it's more of just taking advantage of these opportunities that we have to quickly upskill and be ready. The other thing that I'd just like to mention in wrapping up, Collins mentioned it when he was, responding to a question earlier on, that the digital revolution, it's not, the revolution we're having now, it's not a question of if, it's not a question of if, it's going to happen. There's no two-way around it. So what we need to understand is that as it happens, what do we need to do to be ready? So this is what the youths of today need to know. And I don't think that the youths are out per se. For me, from my point of view, I think they are the drivers of change. When you talk of e-commerce, when you talk of digital platforms, when you talk of the new ways of doing things, it is the youth that are driving this thing from a consumption point of view, from an adoption point of view. So the youth are already in it. They just need to be a bit more strategic on how they take advantages of the opportunities that arise out of this change that's already going. From an environment point of view, I know Caroline Mugalia talked about the policy environment. I think this needs to be a continuous conversation, and then maybe beyond just conversation, we need to have a platform where these conversations can be put there, because young people today consume the information a lot more, and the more they consume the information, the more they get empowered. And once they're empowered, they know. I know young people, millennials and Gen Zs that we're talking about today, there are people who demand from their employers certain minimum conditions, and we continuously see it from a recruitment point of view, and they have forced even corporates, big multinationals like us, to go to the point of retailoring culture, retailoring the workspace, retailoring how they're treated, how their recruitment, and even the pay packages. So this is already happening. It's just a question of, can we make the conversation a bit more visible so that people who are fresh from campus, people already working, people who are not aware of this can also know. So we need to see more conversations on all the platforms that we have, YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram, around what policies, what rights do young people who are working have, so that they are able to demand this in the workspace. There's the question of unemployment. I think on this, from a talent acquisition point of view, I have a dilemma. We have moments where we have roles, but because the level of skills that we are looking for do not already exist in the market, then we have a job for way too long. And this, I think, is where the question of diversity of skills and how do you call it, democratization of access to education comes in. So you have people who grew up in the cosmopolitan spaces, Nairobi's and the Dar es Salaams, having a bit more awareness, a bit more ability to communicate and sell themselves better, and even better using these digital platforms. Then the people who are from the rural areas do not have the same. So in a space where opportunities are offered, we have an imbalanced access to these opportunities. And therefore, the question of diversity and inclusion is not just a question of merit. It should be a question of how well do we get involved in the upskilling process. So the likes of Mika, the likes of Franklin, the likes of Collins, I think we need to go ahead a bit further towards empowering and getting people who are also from rural areas well knowledgeable about opportunities and what is expected. How do we define talent? I remember Collins highlighted some skills that people must have. So students, graduates, people who are looking for jobs need to know this, they need to embrace, and therefore get ready with the skills so that they are able to access opportunities without only saying there is no employment, yet there's also a question of, are you skilled enough? So with that, I think I'll just close and say we are in a space of catalyzed change. So it's really, really fast. I don't think it's going to be entirely gloomy. I've seen a lot of consumer behavior change in the space around us. We see more Kenyans going out. We see people buying more online. So there's going to be new opportunities that are coming up. We see Samuel here talking about entrepreneurship, and because of the ruffled employment environment, we're going to see a lot of businesses coming up out of necessity. And this, I think, in the period of 2, 3, 4 years, we're going to see businesses that are able to employ some more people. So I don't think it's going to be entirely gloomy. I think these opportunities are going to shift elsewhere, and it's only upon us to be ready for when they come. Yeah, I think that is it. Otherwise, thank you very much. I was honored to be part of you guys.
Okay, thank you very much, Oliver. We appreciate you, your comments and your knowledge that you have shared with us. Okay, so moving on to Karibu. So moving on to our final panelist, Kevin. Kevin, could you just close us with our final?
Ellen.
Yes, just have the floor.
Yeah, I have a few things to put on my final remark. First of all, I want to say that I want to speak with my fellow young people in East Africa, that every opportunity have a price to pay. So when you see any opportunity, you have to pay something. And the biggest price on opportunity is the commitment. You need to have a commitment on that opportunity. When someone give you, or you find for yourself and people, give you that opportunity. So that is an issue, or that is the biggest thing that you need to know. Everyone as individual, as an organization have a chance to do something that is a big and massive to make changes and to provide inclusive for sustainable job opportunity. Because as individual, don't use or don't depend on saying that graduate waiting for the job. Even you see for now, every job description say that we need someone with the experience of 6 or 7 years. And if you are coming from the college, you are no longer doing any work. How can you have experience of 6 or 10 years? It's a very challenge. So you need to add value for what you are. That is the world we're living. We're not living at the world that you can say that I'm holding the master degree, that's all. You need to add value for what you are. People, they say you need someone who have a master degree, and we have someone with addition of some stuff. So addition to add your value on what you have is current world we live in. People need an extra because there are a lot of people who have a qualification with relate with you. So people need to have addition stuff to make out to compete for a job. But for my encouragement is to encourage young people to be a creator of the job, to create opportunity for good example. I used to speak about my experience and where I come through to make this factory appear and being at this level today. I start with when I built the first team, I built with 16, almost 16 people. But the first team all leave me alone. I left it alone and I start again with 21 people. And also they leave me alone. At the end of the day, I tried third time, and that's the third time when I tried at the same time, I started a little, and the people started leaving me and leaving. So it's a very hard to start something, to create. It's not easy way to come up and make something happen. So every people in East Africa need to know that when you start something, when you want to create job or to find opportunity, it's not easy. It's not like sleeping and working. It just take time to make something to become lean. It take even them years or 1 year or 2 years to come. Our project is starting 2016, but to see the revenue and we start to generate the income 2 years after starting the project. So it's not easy. People must know that to start or to do something is not an easy way. You need a little commitment. You need to have a commitment. You need to have passion that you need to do something and make changes to the community and to your life as well. But at the end of the day, we need to understand that in Africa, we still have a lot of opportunity if we open our eyes and see. We still have, if you look on all sectors, education, health sector, industries, we on that whole sector, we don't even produce, or we don't even fix for 50%. We have a gap on every sector. We can use that gaps to make changes and to make opportunities for ourselves. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Kevin.
Yeah.
So thank you. Thank you very much to each and every one of our panelists. Thank you to Collins. Thank you to Kevin. Thank you to Caroline Kamati and Caroline Njuki, as well as Oliver Otieno. So I'm going to give the final remarks. I believe from what we've had today, is that sustainable and inclusive job opportunities that as young people we are looking for. It's all a collaborative effort between us as the young people, our entrepreneurs, and the government leaders. For example, as young people, we've heard from Collins that there's need to invest in practical skills. We need to have those skills opportunity that will enable us occupy those job opportunities and decent work opportunities that we need to have. So we also need to see that we have not just the hard and technical skills, but we also have that soft skills, like as Collins has mentioned, things like problem solving, which are very important for us, even as we move towards the future of work. Another issue is around the policy environment. So even as young people, we gain those skills. How are the policy makers and the government leaders providing that enabling environment to support us to transition into work? And even for those of us who are in work, how can we be able to have and to see more youth-friendly policies that provide us with credit, as young people have mentioned, that we need credit, we need TVET education and skills, we need to look at strengthening our social protection programs. And also we need to look at diversity and inclusion. How are we also including the rural young people, the female young people, the vulnerable and marginalized young people, so that we can have more jobs and more economic opportunities and decent work for us. So at this juncture, I'd like to thank each and every one of you for participating in this wonderful webinar. And we have also gotten to hear from our wonderful panelists. So thank you. Okay. Sorry. The session is closed. Sorry for that. Thank you, everyone. Over to you, Franklin.
All right. Thank you, Irene. Thank you, everyone, for coming in, especially our keynote speakers, the one that attended, the one that contributed, especially on this wonderful topic, the future of work, which encompasses, entails a lot of things, rights, entitlement. We look forward to having you more and more engagement in collaboration with the Savo Labs. We thank you and we wish you a wonderful weekend and a wonderful evening. Thank you. Remember, we are planning our summit next month. We're in preparations. And whatever we have been saying, most of your comments, of your suggestions, we are planning to have them in our discussions at regional level, because our summit will be virtual and physical, a hybrid one. Thank you, Irene, for moderating, and everyone. Have a nice weekend.
MC Benny.
Come on, East Africa.
Ha.
This a party. Ah.
Tell them. Afrika Mashariki. Twaja pamoja.
country to country, yeah. We gotta work together, we are leaders now. Aiming high for the better, together. To make our nations greater, while sharing to the power. So you lead, I lead, we lead together. So you lead, I lead, we lead together. We will lead, we will lead. Let your dream be a reality. We will lead, we will lead. Let your dream be a reality.
Together we'll shape with responsibility as young people. With ability, here we are to take the opportunity to raise the flag of East Africa. Together with love, together with peace, together respond to our need. Together transform our community as we see light and a bright future. Let's join hands for youth and women. Let's join hands for youth and women.
Afrika Mashariki yote twaungana, vijana vijana toka Kenya, Tanzania, Uganda, Burundi hadi South Sudan na Rwanda. Twaja pamoja ili fanye nini? Vijana wote.